So Square Enix's stock value has dropped in the past few days. Some people have chalked it up to some of Final Fantasy. Some have said, based on the analysis, that it's a matter of profitability overall. Investors don't like what they hear. But even though the company still seems to be rated in a decent health, because the analysts are not saying to sell, they're saying hold, some are saying buy, and none are saying to sell, it shows that there's still faith in the company from an investor perspective. Nonetheless, I think we have a Final Fantasy case study here with this particular publisher. It appears that Sony's money gating and even Microsoft's doesn't seem to have a lot of good consequences on the back end. What usually happens, like in the case of Microsoft when they did their deal with the Rise of the Tomb Raider game, was a lot of people did not like Microsoft for it. And Microsoft is a company that cares about their image. In the case of Sony, there just seems to be a lot of volume. So a lot of Sony people that are fighting their, imaginary console war will say, oh, this is because Microsoft has got nothing, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, the pressures of the whole gaming scene right now is changing. Right now, an article just surfaced from The Verge that Sony is actually starting to stream PS5 games at 4K over the internet in a public beta. What could be the reason for this? I mean, everyone is saying, cloud gaming is not really a big deal, but the reality is actually it is. GeForce Now is actually a service where Xbox gamers who purchase their games on PC can actually play them on their Xbox or other devices if they have a good internet connection. You can play Baldur's Gate 3 on your Xbox. If you actually purchase the game on Steam or other services and you get GeForce Now, you can go in your Xbox's browser and play the game. So as many may be saying the game is not available on Xbox, it's not directly, but indirectly there are services that seem to allow for it. And I think Sony understands that this is coming. What does this even have to do with Square Enix? I'm glad you asked. So apparently Push Square, which is a much more favorable PlayStation publication, is coming out saying that Square Enix is bafflingly backtracking on the Final Fantasy 16 sales and blames slow PS5 adoption. And this is what they're saying. We can read their article for a little bit. I mean, I guess we can basically go ahead and see what they're talking about. It says, is there a more baffling big publisher than Square Enix? Just last month, the Japanese company issued a statement saying that it considered sales of Final Fantasy 16 extremely strong, after the PS5 exclusive had surpassed 3 million copies in under a week following its launch. Now, however, Square Enix's boss, Takahashi Kiryu, is saying that the action RPG didn't meet the publisher's higher end expectations. Now, I talked about this in my last video. Expectations seem to have ranged from low end to higher end, and maybe higher end was, Zelda numbers, and then, mid-range was basically anything more than a few million copies. So the game must still have done well. I'm not saying the game didn't do well. What I'm saying is, in order for them to be able to come out and say the backtrack comes courtesy of the company's latest earnings report as covered by Bloomberg's paywall, which basically is a paywall in this article, it apparently is a rough one, with Square Enix pointing out a 79% drop in profit. The parts that's bound to raise eyebrows, though, Kiryu highlighted the PS5 slow adoption as a cause of Final Fantasy 16 struggles. Now, I'm saying this because it seems like Sony may have probably promised the world when in reality, this game probably has a PC version sitting somewhere in their studios in the Square Enix ecosystem. If you think I'm crazy, go back to the 2021 trailer for Final Fantasy 16. As the trailer is about to start, there's a posting here that says the following content is captured on PC emulating the PS5 experience. And then once you click, the trailer goes on to show a bunch of cutscenes that I've seen some in the game after release. I don't play Final Fantasy. I just kind of watch reviews and stuff. But it seems to me that they actually took the PC version. They kind of locked it to the PS5 performance measures and then used this for promotionals. So there is a PC version in their studio somewhere. That's basically what this translates to. Somebody on Twitter was telling me that, I'm talking nonsense, that it's going to require a lot more money for them to go ahead and make a PC port, when in reality, this is the PC port. In fact, here is the same trailer on the PlayStation's YouTube channel having the exact same disclaimer. I don't know if you guys know, but since about the days of Rainbow Six Siege, a lot of gaming companies were put on blast to have to make disclaimers like this because a class action lawsuit can be fired up if you go show players something that is not representative of the experience that they're going to have. So looking at all of this, it appears to me that this game, these cutscenes that they're capturing footage from and possibly gameplay, basically, is running on a PC. So why is Square Enix following these so-called third-party deals and then coming on the back end to say our sales didn't seem to meet expectations when the answer is right in front of them? I think these were business decisions and agreements that were made with a lot of poor judgment. Somebody who probably, maybe the former leadership or some idea from somebody else who wanted to pad up numbers and make it seem like, all things are going well, when in reality, at the time they probably made these agreements 2 years ago, nobody was talking about Bethesda being acquired by Microsoft. No one was talking about Microsoft wanting to acquire Call of Duty. No one was talking about even GeForce Now, Nvidia's streaming service. I don't even know when this service came into play. I can't even remember because it was such a interesting proposition. A lot of PC players didn't want to deal with it, but now it seems like it's serving a broader audience. And just in that short period of time, the gaming industry has changed so drastically that you can't really recognize what's going on. I'm going to make a bold claim. I think with all of this, these third-party exclusivity deals are largely dead. I said this before. Somebody said, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, you have no idea what all of these market forces seem to be doing. I mean, look at Sony running all over the place, making live service games, streaming games on the internet. That's something that they tried and they shut down. They're going back to resuscitate it because they realize that the landscape is shifting heavily. And what's even wild is if they're not going to follow a value proposition model, their own proposition is still going to die anyways. Remember, there was a PlayStation Now service back in the day. I remember subscribing to that thing for about a month, and I said, man, there just isn't much here that I can deal with. Compared to Game Pass that, a lot of people are actively subscribed to, there's a value model that needs to go into these services at the time that they're actually building up their consumer base. And Sony would have to actually go back and take these third-party deals and do something else with them, like put them on their new if they're going to make a streaming service, put them on that service so that players can find them attractive. Until then, it's going to be all kinds of weird conversations going on because the conversation is still going. Some people are still till this date. Some people are saying, well, this is fake news. Nice try, blah, blah, blah. But the truth of the matter is it's not necessarily, fake news. It's numbers and projections pretty much being looked at right here in front of everyone. For this game, 3 million copies being sold in the first week is just 3 million copies being sold in the first week. What if they projected sales of about 5 to 7 million? And then they got only less than 5 to 7 million of that. Maybe that's their expectations. And many companies have made drastic moves based on expectations not being met. One game that comes to mind is Tom Clancy's The Division 2. I remember when The Division 2, was launched, it was one of those games where the first game did very well. It sat just below FIFA in 2016 at launch. But when the game released and was launched, it actually sold like 10 million copies on PC without Steam. Ubisoft decided that they were not going to release the game on Steam. They released it on Ubisoft Connect or Uplay. At the time, it was mainly Uplay. They released it on Epic Games. And then later on, they brought it to Steam. But I think it was like this year or last year, they brought it to Steam. But it sold a lot on PC. But on consoles, the sales were low. And since then, we didn't hear anything else about continuation of building another Division franchise since it was gone. I mean, they're now doing the Division Heartland from there, which is going to be a free-to-play game. But it seems like Ubisoft did not see it as profitable, so they just seem to not want to go ahead and invest any more in it. So Square Enix is not going to surprise me if they take a whole different turn. And a lot of gamers don't seem to want to reconcile with this. They constantly keep throwing this little clip here saying that's a lie. Oh, this is not true, blah, blah, blah. Talking about all of these different anecdotal sides, saying that the idea here is not necessarily, sure, the headline is it's clickbaity, bafflingly backtracks. The headline is just basically throwing things out there, but the reality is sales projections were not met. Now, they put money in the bank, but they also have a situation to be able to mitigate that. Like not signing a console exclusivity when you have potentially another 2 million copies of this game could have sold, and they could have told Sony, we're going to negotiate something else where we can put this game on PC, because the PC version is basically cooked. Maybe it's not done, but it's basically cooked, where all they probably need is just a little bit more time in the oven and it will be complete. But here it is. In my opinion, if they want to talk about not meeting sales projections, then they should also go back and look at probably the reason they're not meeting sales projections and then resolve things from there. But these are my thoughts. Let me hear what you think in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching the video. Peace out.